Hi, Marvi here, and welcome to Cooking at Home. Tonight I'm going to make afritada, chicken afritada, for our Noche Buena company tomorrow. Noche Buena is a Christmas Eve dinner, and we're expecting about maybe 30 people, including us. So I'm cooking about 6 pounds of chicken, and so basically the ingredients are chicken. I use chicken thighs. I cut it up into bite-sized pieces, not so tiny, but medium. And then onions, garlic, onions, and tomatoes as your basic saute. And then I will add the chicken, and I have carrots and potatoes and tomato sauce to simmer in a sauce. And then we correct the seasoning with salt, pepper, or fish sauce. And my twist is that I add a little bit of green peas in it and chili powder to give it a little heat. I always like to have a little bit of heat without it being really overtly hot in your mouth. So that way it just makes it more interesting in the palate. So first I have my giant wok right here. This is my mother's, and it's probably 50, 60 years old. It's been a while that it's been used. It's aluminum, and I use this for big sautés, so like what I'm doing now. So I'm heating up my pan, my wok, and I will be using coconut oil. So that is getting hot, and I'm going to add coconut oil, which I like very much. About that much. We'll get that warm, and then I will add garlic, onions, and tomatoes. So mise en place, I already have everything here beside me. Here's the chicken all cut up. Anything that's tomato based, I like to cook a day ahead, and that's because tomato sauce it's just one of those sauces that tastes better the next day. It gives all the ingredients time to just incorporate beautifully. And to that, I will get my garlic. See, I have a lot of minced garlic already, and I think it's getting ready. So I'm just spreading a little bit of the oil on the sides too. So I will add some minced garlic. Oh yeah. So I'm now on medium high. And that's because I can actually go high. It's because my wok is suspended in a cooking grate so that it's not going to dance around. Cooking for 5 people, 2 people, 20 people, it's basically the same. Preparation is just a little bit longer, and but the procedure is the same. And of course it just takes longer because you have more volume to cook, but it's not anything to be daunted with, or yeah, don't be afraid to do it. And the nice thing when you cook in bulk too is you can freeze a lot of the foods. This dish, afritada, which I don't really know what it means, but it's a Spanish Filipino dish, and it's what we inherited from Spain, I suppose. So make sure the garlic browns a little bit. You don't want it to burn, and then you can add the onions. I like to add a lot of onions. So it's like a basic sofrito. There. And then I'm going to just keep doing this until the onions wilt. Might need to add a little bit more oil. There we go. So while waiting for that, let me tell you about the chicken. Their chicken thighs, they're deboned, and they have no skin on them. They're skinless, and we cut out a lot of the fat. Oh, I wish you could smell this. It's really smelling good. So I have this on high. That's because I have the distance between the wok and the grate. See, it doesn't move. Then, as it's wilting, maybe a couple more seconds or so, I'm going to add tomatoes. So I just keep slicing tomatoes, and I'm going to use some of these for tomorrow's scrambled eggs, which I serve for Noche Buena. So basically, what the main course is, usually we have a meat, and that's ham, but tomorrow I'm featuring serrano ham. And I'm serving that as like an appetizer, but it can also be eaten with everything else. So serrano ham with manchego cheese and pimientos, and that's roasted peppers, and Spanish olives, which are stuffed with, I think, pimiento or garlic inside. But my main course is the afritada, so that's the main protein. And I'm serving that with Filipino-style garlic fried rice and scrambled eggs, which I think my mom made popular in our household. We just love it. My scrambled eggs has onions and tomatoes, and I've added cilantro and mushrooms, and tomorrow I'm going to add a little bit bell peppers, and we'll just scramble that, and everybody just loves it. I will season it with fish sauce. Now that it's nice and wilted, I'm going to add half the tomatoes. I'm not adding so much because I'm already cooking this in a tomato. I'm using organic tomato sauce, so I have a couple of cans, actually 3 cans, a third can on standby. But I'm not one of those that have strict portions. I basically wing recipes, so I'm just winging this from how I remember my mom making afritada. Many times I wish I paid more attention when she was cooking, but I was so young and foolish then. I lost my mom when I was 22, and so I wish I learned more from her, because she was such an excellent cook. Her whole family, all of them sisters, they are amazing cooks. So now that's wilting, we can start adding the chicken to it. And I don't know if you can see, but it's beginning to sauce up already. And that's the beginning of the absorption as well as the creation of all these delectable juices. So I'm going to add chicken, a lot of chicken, and I'll be mixing it in between. Yes, this year I said it's going to be a smaller group, but it's still over 20 people. We were trying to keep it down to 20 because in the past years we've had up to maybe 40 people show up. And yes, I do most of the cooking. My kids, oftentimes, if they're visiting or here for Christmas, they will help. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm layering this. You don't need to brown the chicken. It's just sauteing it so that now they're blending nicely with a basic saute of garlic, onions, and tomatoes. So I'll keep adding. And to this, later on, we're going to add potatoes and carrots. We'll see how much this wok can hold. I'm one of those cooks that I'd rather have extra food than no food at all. Or run out of food, rather. I'm going to still season it because once I add the tomato sauce, we can still correct further. But if we build the seasonings now, then everything tastes really good all the way inside. I like to use fish sauce, actually, instead of using a lot more salt. Now this is probably the most premium of fish sauces. It's a little bit on the expensive side compared to all the others, but there's no additional additive to it. No sugar, no stabilizers, nothing. And, I tell people, fish sauce is not perfume. But once the heat infuses, or once the fish sauce infuses with the heat, the smell goes away. This is no pungent smell. It's just one lovely. Rice and fish sauce, with an egg, excellent. So now you see the chicken is cooking. It's turning white, for those of you who want to know how chicken, or what the signs are of your chicken is cooking. Of course, the pinkness will start disappearing and it starts turning white. So I still want this to simmer or saute dry before I add the tomato sauce. So I'm just waiting for this to simmer some more. Then we will add the tomato sauce. I'm not very good at looking at time when I start cooking. I mean, I should have paid attention, but I think I've been maybe 15 minutes into this. I'll find out when I edit the video, won't I? Okay. we will start putting now the tomato sauce. I might end up using 3 cans. Here's a tip for you. Before you open a can of tomato sauce, rinse the whole can. You know, we grew up in the Philippines doing that constantly because we never knew if there were roaches, I'm not going to say that, roaches or mice or whatever, or dust, you know, that would be in the can, and you don't want to transfer that to your food. Now, I will put water there later. Let's see what 2 cans do. I have about half a can of water in each can, you know. There we go. Ooh, I like that swishing sound. I'm gonna have to open a 3rd can. Now, tomatoes get sweeter as it cooks in heat, or as the heat gets it to change its chemical properties. It just gets sweeter and sweeter. So if you don't like that sour thing, that sour edge on tomatoes, which I don't, I make sure I cook it up really well. And that's why anything tomato based is better the next day. Oops. There we go. It's like chemistry here. Okay. That's beginning to look like it, the way it should be looking. And as this cooks up, it'll get a little saucier because the chicken will emit its juices, and then I'm going to add carrots and potatoes so they'll all cook together, and so all the flavors will just get absorbed by the vegetable stew. So I have some of these baby carrots. I just like these because it's convenient. You can cut up your own carrots, of course. I'm going to lower the heat now. Organic baby potatoes. I'm probably going to add them a little bit later because they get more tender faster than the carrots actually. I think we're going to add more sauce to this, and that's because people like it saucy. Once we add the potatoes, the sauce will thicken naturally. I'm going to add a little chicken stock, and that's just to ensure that I'll have a full-bodied sauce. Because at the end I can always reduce this by putting it on high. The reason you want to do that too is you want to make sure there's enough liquid to simmer everything, to cook it through nicely. And the one thing to learn about chicken is you don't want to cook it on high and boil hard because it gets tougher. So when you simmer meats in general, that's when you get it really falling off the bone tender. Oh, it's tasting good already. You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and put the potatoes because it's going to be in a slow simmer. So I think everything's just going to come out so wonderful. I like this medley of small potatoes. They look so cute and colorful. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty full wok, isn't it? I'm going to need to add a little more chicken stock so that there's enough liquid, probably just adding the whole thing, so that there's enough liquid to cook everything. This is winging it, okay? I don't have ingredient portions, but you see what I'm doing, so easy enough to emulate. I'm just gonna have to turn this over a couple of times, so 10 to 8. So I'm gonna check on this 15 minutes from now, and I will cover it with aluminum foil. Okay, so we're about 45 minutes into it, and it is simmering nicely. So I have corrected the seasoning, add a little bit more chili powder, and I did add a little bit of mushroom seasoning just so I don't have to add too much salt, and I just created another layer of flavor. A watched pot never boils, so I'm kind of peeking, but it's beginning to simmer. I just want to make sure it doesn't burn underneath because I have it on medium high. All right, so it's been about, I'd say 40 minutes from the time we got this started with a simmer, and I checked my vegetables. The potatoes are quite tender already, and you can see there's this nice rich oil that's floating on top, and that's actually what's going to make this sauce really lovely. In between, I added a little more salt and chili powder. So it's important that you taste when you're cooking big bulk stuff like this. Now for the final step, I'm going to add some peas. It's just to give it a beautiful color. And probably in half an hour this will be cooked, and I'll let it sit overnight because it needs to cool by itself, and we're going to reheat this again tomorrow. Second bag of peas, maybe half. What the heck? It just makes the color very pretty. And I do like peas. Everybody seems to like peas. Okay, we're gonna let this simmer again, and I will cover it for a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it on high and take the lid off and let it reduce. It's nicely simmering now, so I'm just gonna stir it a little bit. So we just finished watching Mrs. Basil, and the daughter is here, the youngest. And she comes in and sniffing because it smells so good.
And so we are having merienda.
Yeah, okay, let's see. Oh, it looks so good. Tell me, daughter, how does it taste? Gotta have it with rice. Husband, would you like some?
It's so warm. No, thank you. It's very good. Very good.
Seal of approval?
Yes.
So yes. Let's see, let's have one potato, couple of carrots. See, over there. A lot of sauce. Ooh, it's so hot. But you see, I'm salivating here. But the sauce has become nice gravy. Ooh, look at that. Afritada.